with the Teachers Talking Hoops podcast. Adam, I'm glad that you called this emergency podcast to discuss Mark Mitchell entering the transfer portal.
Yeah, first of all, I'm hoping that he comes to Texas A&M because we could properly use him. We know something about converting Duke guys who aren't really a factor to some key players, so maybe we'll get him.
Yeah, I tell you what, he's not going to make your free throw percentages any better.
That's right. Neither does Henry Coleman. So,
all right, we'll get to Duke. We will get to Duke, but we will discuss the national championship, which wasn't much of a national championship. I tell you what, did I watch UConn Purdue? Not as much as I watched USC and Iowa.
You mean South Carolina and
South
Iowa?
Carolina and Iowa, yeah.
Did you even watch that either? Because you didn't even get one team right.
I keep getting South Carolina and Southern California mixed up.
Okay.
I watched more, and did I watch those games as much as I watched LSU Iowa? I did not.
That's because you're salty.
I was locked in on LSU Iowa.
You're a salty Duke fan. That's what you are. Also, LSU Iowa was played, I think, before Duke lost.
It would no.
Yes.
Yes, the Friday before, I think. Yeah, the Friday before.
Should we just jump right to it?
Yeah, you go ahead. You take the lead.
Okay. Dan Hurley's the GOAT. I mean, come on, 2 straight years.
I have statistics.
Dan Hurley is the GOAT.
But I'm on a new computer, so I have to re-look up my statistics.
Way to represent the Northeast, UConn Huskies.
They're on my other computer.
Listen.
Let me get my statistics up.
Dan Hurley has more national championships than John Shire does. So Dan Hurley because
But John Shire's happy in life.
So is Dan Hurley.
No.
Dan Hurley is very happy. Okay, first of all, let's just discuss, right? Dan Hurley and his UConn Huskies, they just did probably one of the hardest things to do in all of sports is repeat titles. I mean, that's a very hard thing to do, especially when they had 3 guys leave for the draft, the transfer portal in lieu of it. Sure, they got some guys. That was incredible. And the average margin of victory that they won each game by was incredible. So props to them. Great coaching job by Dan Hurley. Great job by the players, the staff, everyone at UConn who was involved. A well-deserved championship.
I mean, I don't think we need to bring John Shire up. It's.
We will.
We will. I don't think we have to. I think we live in a world where
you've had your time to grieve that loss.
When anyone does anything successful, they like to take a dig at Duke.
Okay.
And they're so concerned about how they compare to Duke that they don't worry about themselves. Right? It's this idea of playing the victim and making it seem like Duke's the bad guy when Duke didn't even do anything to these teams.
You know, the projected finals for next year are UConn Duke, so I'd just love to see that happen.
That was on my list of things to talk about. How might as well
UConn
award Duke the trophy right now. They're number 1 in all the 2 early top 25s.
Yeah, well, Dan Hurley's got some tricks up his sleeve, so he's gonna get into Cooper Flagg's head pretty easily.
No, and then I was reading. I'm still trying to find my statistics. I was reading some stupid guy on Twitter was talking about how Cooper Flagg is going to regret his decision and blah blah, which is the stupidest thing ever because Cooper Flagg is not going to college to become okay, yes, in theory he's going to college to become better at basketball. That's not really why he's going to college. He's going to college to make some money, learn the game a little bit, and move on. Cooper Flagg doesn't need to go to UConn. Cooper Flag needs to go to the biggest brand in college basketball. That's a fact. That is it. We're not talking about. I didn't say the best program in college basketball. I said the biggest brand in college basketball.
But not the best conference in college basketball.
Nope. That's true. But the biggest brand in college basketball.
All right.
No, pay more attention. If you ask people who don't watch college basketball about a college basketball team, you think they bring up Kansas?
What question would you have me formulate here?
I would ask them. Hey, who do you think's going to win the tournament this year? And they'd be like, I don't know, Duke maybe.
So can I test that theory right now?
Your family watches. Are you going to text someone? Because your family.
Yes, someone who doesn't watch college basketball.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it someone that know? How close is this person to you?
Well, how close do you want the person to be?
Not that close because you like basketball.
Okay, that's fine.
Sometimes.
So I'll ask a person in my class.
Okay.
I'll do it right now. Let's see. So you want me to ask who do you think is going to win the college basketball title next year?
Yeah, but this is slightly skewed because if the person was watching the news, they may have heard that UConn won. But I guarantee they say either UConn or Duke. They ain't saying Kansas. They're not saying Michigan State. They're not saying UCLA.
Okay, we're gonna see. I just gotta wait for the text back.
Duke and UConn also, I believe, statistically, I'm still working on my statistics here.
It's been 7 minutes.
Have the most championships since like 1990 or something like that. So in the modern age of college basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, UConn has done it much more recently in terms of their 6 in the past 25 years or so.
Yep.
But in the past 35 years, no one's been more successful than UConn and Duke, I believe. Because I think a lot of Kentucky and Kansas and UNC have won. UNC's probably up there. I'd say UNC, Duke, and UConn have been the most successful programs in the last 30, 40 years.
I'd say Villanova too.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yep. But I think they're that sort of downward trend.
Yeah, definitely. That's for sure. Absolutely. But I mean, yeah, we'll get to Duke. You've had enough grieving time. After
I do have a point about UConn when Well, I found the statistic super easy earlier, and now
you can't find it. That's because Dan Hurley erased it. Listen, I'm just gonna say this: you can criticize Dan Hurley all you want, but he wins wherever he goes. So this was not a surprise. I think UConn played Zach Edey perfectly, and they were probably the only team I've seen all year that scored on Purdue as easily as anybody has. I mean, yes. Zach Edey was just lost.
Did you if I told you at any point in the season that UConn and Purdue were going to be in the national championship, at any point in the season would you have picked Purdue? Because I wouldn't have.
No, I wouldn't have. I picked them in the bracket. May I just say you were crapping on me, and then I ended up finishing in second, and you finished in 17th. So,
yeah, but I stuck by my morals.
So did I, and my morals said that UConn is going to win. But anyway, no, I would not have. UConn, yes. Purdue, no. I did not think that Purdue was going to get there until I saw the bracket and they had the easiest path. And I mean, sure, that Final Four against NC State was easier than it would have been against Duke or Marquette or Houston, because anybody's would against those teams. But I mean, they had a fantastic season and they just got blitzed. I mean, off ball screens.
They weren't good enough. Like, I think UConn went back to back in a in a tournament that like parity is good for the sport,
Mm-hmm.
but there wasn't. I would say UConn's victories did not. So UConn winning games did not
Mm-hmm.
impress me. Like I wasn't like, oh my goodness, I can't believe UConn won that many games. I can't believe they were as successful as they were.
Mm-hmm.
The ease at which they won the games
Mm-hmm.
and the margin of victory, that certainly was impressive.
Mm-hmm.
They never really take games off or have
Yep.
little kind of blips on the radar. Um, and obviously that is a byproduct of Dan Hurley
Mm-hmm.
and his mentality. Um, but I at no point was I was like, man, that was an impressive victory by UConn because it just I think they appeared to have the best team and no
Mm-hmm.
one else everyone else was so flawed, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like.
Yep. And this nobody had any questions about this team at all.
Yeah, like Purdue, I mean obviously the guards they were good in the season, but everyone definitely questioned where the
Yep.
guards could produce. Duke didn't have a big man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, UNC was pretty good all year, but they didn't play defense.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Alabama.
Sure.
There's just so many flaws, and UConn was I'd say like UConn was good everywhere. Probably
Mm-hmm.
not great anywhere.
Yep.
But I between good and great, I wouldn't say they're good. They were better than good, not
Mm-hmm.
great. But they were better than good everywhere. I did find my statistic, by the way.
Okay.
Um, so going back to, um, I guess it was if we're talking about the '90s, which is what I brought up of Duke's success. Here is UConn's performance in the postseason tournament
Okay.
since 1990.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet 16, round of 32. NIT, Sweet 16, Elite 8, Sweet 16, NIT, Elite 8, Champions, round of 32, NIT, Elite 8, Sweet 16, Champions, round of 32, Elite 8, didn't make any tournament, uh, round of 64, Final Four, NIT, Champions, round of 64, Champions, NIT, second round, nothing, 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 COVID, but wouldn't have made it. Um, round of 64, round of 64, champions, champions. I
Mm-hmm.
bring that up because if it'd be easier if I'll send you a link in the chat. But I only bring it up because they obviously I'm not allowed to send chats. I guess not. Um, I guess not. UConn is very successful, back-to-back champions. You can't deny that. Um, but there's some big blips on the radar there in the last 35 years that make me question. And like the championships are there, and I don't really care about the name Blue Blood and all that,
But
but
UConn is.
but do the other teams have those? So do they have those blips? I mean, like
Yes. Look at
multiple
Kentucky. Look at Kentucky. No tournament. 64, 32, 64. Here we go. Duke. Sure. No
there's no
tournament. Final
there's
four.
no NITs or missed tournaments in there.
Yeah, there is.
There's one. There's one.
Yeah.
There's one.
North Carolina. Didn't make it.
This is a lot of blips on.
Kansas this year
Here's Danny Hurley.
and
Danny
last
Hurley
year.
is Danny Hurley's no postseason. COVID wasn't going to make it. 64, 64, champions, champions.
Yeah,
I think the interesting thing about Danny Hurley is going to be, um, like most teams go through, he could lose a lot from this team.
sure.
Um, and
But he did last year too.
yes, but I think he's brought in better guys this year than he's going to bring in next year. Except we don't really know. Like I think freshman wise, I don't think he's bringing in a great class, or like a class that's going to win you a championship. I should say. But he certainly is going to get transfers, right? Why would you not want to go play for the national
Absolutely.
champions?
Absolutely.
Um, I would be curious if UConn is a first weekend team next year,
Mm-hmm.
64-32.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. I'm just curious. I'm curious what the next 10 years under Danny Hurley looks like.
Mm-hmm. Assuming he doesn't
Apparently,
get another
according
job
to
somewhere
him,
else.
yeah, I was gonna say, according to him, it looks like it's going to be taking place in Connecticut, but
Mm-hmm.
other people think that money talks.
Mm.
I mean,
I mean, there's a
Danny Hurley likes to tell you money doesn't talk because he's blue collar through and through because that's the image that he likes to portray and make people think that uh, that's just
what a hater. Get out of here. What a hater. Also, the text has come in and it says word for word. I follow the men even less, so the only one I know is good is UConn.
that's because she heard on the news that you come with a championship. That's bias. If you
All
had
right, all
asked
right.
if you had asked her in the beginning of the tournament, she would have said Duke.
All right, hang on. Let me ask. Oh, I'll ask him. Okay, I'm gonna ask someone who does not.
Ask him if does he know who won be like, hey, UConn won the NCAA tournament this year. Do you know who won last year?
Why don't I ask who won 2 years ago? Because UConn won the year before.
Yeah, but I don't think he's not going to know that.
Yeah, so it's got to be a formulated guess.
Fine, so 2 years ago.
All right, all right, all right.
All right, so that's my uh, those are my statistics on UConn. Ken
All right,
Tom had UConn as the number one team.
we'll see how this goes. There's my second person. If he says UConn, I it is. I'm sorry to break it to you. Anyway, um, so
This is one of the most pointless discussions that we've had on the podcast because Duke is the biggest brand in college. Duke is top three biggest brand
what are we?
in sports.
What are we doing? I don't even know what we're talking about anymore.
So I all right.
um,
So give us your impression of the game, the championship game.
um, I thought that UConn was in control early. Like I mentioned before, never, I had never seen anyone score on Purdue that easily. Uh, this year, I mean, UConn was making outside shots. Cam Spencer was getting the lane. Ball fakes at Zach Edey, making layups over him. Newton went up against him with no fear. And again, you said that size factor with clinging to, bodying up against him, not giving him anything easy. If you look where Zach Edey shot those hooks, I mean, he's almost at the foul line and he's throwing those up. And Dan Hurley still wasn't happy with that he was getting early position. But you push a guy to the restricted arc foul line area, you got to live with that. I mean, he's 7'4", but Purdue, obviously, there were questions about would they have enough? Would their bench be enough? Obviously, it wasn't, but I also think it's UConn's experience too. I mean, they just looked comfortable from the beginning, and they took over late and actually early in the second half, and then just continued that. And I don't want to say they ran away with it, but it was one of those where it was an 8-point lead, but it was a very in control 8-point lead. So
Yeah, and he was, Edie was shuffling his feet a lot. Good call for
Sure.
travels. I think
Yep.
it's, he got the position and then he kind of
Yep. Then
found
that
himself
he
in an
just
awkward spot.
Yep, they did not let him get comfortable. I mean, he had 37, but it was a hard working
Yeah,
37.
yeah,
So,
and it's the mindset I think that some teams take with like a DJ Burns. You know, UConn kind of looks at it and says, "Well, we think we can score 75 or 80 points or 70, 80 points. We don't think Zach Edey can score 70, 80 points. So if he's going to score, fine. And
mm,
we'll just score more points than Edey does."
hey, it's what FDU did last year. You let Edie get his, but you limit everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
So,
All right, hang on. The texts are coming in. Hold up. He knows UConn. Oh, he's like, I have no idea. I said guess. The answer, you're not gonna be happy about this, was North Carolina. so you're over 2.
biggest brand. And yeah, so I think um um it UConn's victory is definitely a telling. It highlights, it kind of highlights where college basketball is going, right? So we talked about the parity and how these mid majors can play these high major programs, but the victory, we're starting to see teams, the traditional blue bloods, the um the Kentuckys, the Dukes, become a little less successful because they're still getting the one and dones. And these guys are coming, they're leaving, or they're being pushed around because they're freshmen and they're not as physically strong. And so, but I think what we're going to start to see potentially happening, and so just like the Blue Bloods were first on the one and done train and they were successful at that, they're a little bit behind on the transfer piece. But I think UConn has shed the way to, sure, I could transfer to uh, um, who'd um, who Duke play in the second round there? The
James Madison.
yeah, JMU, right? I could transfer to a JMU and we could get this mid-major thing and kind of build up really strong, or I can transfer to Texas, or I
Mm-hmm.
can transfer to Colorado. I could transfer
Yep.
to a high major program,
Mm-hmm.
and I think in the next couple years, that's the pattern that we're going to see is we're going to have a little more parity because we're not going to have like superstar teams,
Mm-hmm.
but we're going to start seeing some kind of clear success by your traditional good teams because they're going to start picking up all the big transfers.
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases it worked. Like Kansas tried a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and just with injuries and all that, like it didn't really work out. Um, but I do think that people are going to look at what UConn did and say, all right, UConn got the right fit, they got the right guys for the program, but they did it through the transfer portal, and we can't just keep getting these guys. But I think the hard part about that is like, and this is the dilemma I face, and I think teams face is, what are you going like? Are you just going to tell Cooper Flag no? Right? Like, like if you think that Cooper Flag is not able to bang down low with Donovan Clingan, right,
Mm-hmm.
like because he's not old enough, do you say, I'm going to go try to pick up, I'm going to try to get DJ Burns to leave NC State, or because he's big and strong and experienced, versus
Mm-hmm.
taking Cooper Flag because Cooper Flag is going to get you. He's dynamic. He's going to get you ratings. He's
Yep.
once in a lifetime, so he could end up being really good. It's that dilemma, like because the one and dones are always going to be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, in this age. if you're not a Cooper Flag or a top 100 recruit, it's hard, especially at the transfer portal. I mean, I was just looking at it the other day, and I feel like we've got 100 at least to 200 kids already in there. Some are already committed. Um, but I think Dan Hurley. What's interesting about him is in UConn is they recruited, and like Caravan and Klingon are Massachusetts and Connecticut kids that were recruited, and then you know Andre Jackson was recruited, and Sonogo was recruited, and all those kids were his foundation, and then he just added with other transfers, and I think that's the blend that ends up working.
Mm-hmm.
You have that experience, but you have that core group still with you, and I think that's why we're seeing them have the success that they did and will continue to have.
And I think it's hard to find that balance, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
Duke could have that, right?
Yeah.
Like Mark Mitchell could have stayed,
Mm-hmm.
and Jared McCain could come back, right? And you have Cale Foster, Jared McCain, Mark Mitchell, Sean Stewart, right? And then you bring in Evans and Flag, and you bring in kind of a good class. Maybe you even keep a Jeremy Roach for kind of that fifth year COVID year, big leadership type stuff. But it's hard. I don't like. Like for me, like I'm such a loyalty guy. Like I like Mark Mitchell, but I see flaws in his game. But I'm
Yeah, but I
like,
don't blame him for leaving though.
no, but I say we signed him, roll with him, right? Like ride or die with the kid.
Yeah, but he's. I mean, you got like you said, you got Evans and Flag coming in, and then Sean Stewart's your next
Yeah,
center.
and you got the big
Yeah,
African guy.
he's the odd man out, and
Yeah.
he's gonna go somewhere else. I don't know. I think I think he got forgotten a lot at Duke,
Hmm.
and I think he needs to go to a program that's going to use him a little more to his skill set.
Hmm.
So, should we get to Duke and the Houston NC State game?
So, uh, we talk about it.
You've had
I
enough
think.
grieving time.
Well, I mean, that's debatable. That's
Let's start
I
with Houston. Start with
I haven't
Houston.
listened to any podcast, but um, it so the Houston game. Here's the frustrating part. They hit shots that they needed to in the Houston game.
Hmm.
Obviously, not a lot of shots because the score wasn't very high.
Yep.
But they had the shots that they needed to in the Houston game.
Hmm.
And I thought Tyrese Proctor was fantastic in the Houston
Hmm.
game. Not so fantastic in the Duke game. Um, but they played so hard in that
Yes.
Houston game,
Yep.
and were so locked in, and I it just it just looks so promising.
Mm.
Uh, I really thought Proctor played well. Roach came out really strong in the second half, and Proctor's defense was just like there was one point, three straight possessions he got stops, and
Hmm.
one possession he just ripped the ball out of LJ
Yep.
Cryer's hand.
Yeah.
Um, and he was just Flip was playing well,
McCain.
and yeah, McCain was kind of locked in. Mark Mitchell was getting blocked. Um,
Ryan
but
Young, some big minutes.
yes, yeah. Ryan Young had huge minutes because they went the double big man lineup.
Yes. And I
Um,
mean, they needed to. It looked like Houston was going to blow you guys out after that
yeah,
10-0 start, and
yeah,
then
and
finally
I think they
settled in.
settled in. Houston's offense went down before what's his
Shed.
name that went out. Yeah, before he went out. I don't see. So now that obviously the big thing comes is what if he doesn't get injured,
Right.
right? Like does Houston win the game? I mean, probably,
Hmm.
but I don't think they blow Duke out of the
Oh,
water.
no, no, I don't think
Because
so, no.
his main role on defense was to shut Jared McCain down, and Jared
Hmm.
McCain didn't really go off. He had
Hmm.
some stuff here and there. He got to the free throw line.
Yeah.
He would have had some points. He wouldn't. He
Hmm.
maybe scores a couple points less.
Yeah.
But I figure I think they final score was like maybe like 54,
50.
51 or something like
Yep. Yeah.
that. So without the injury, I kind of figured maybe Duke loses. Maybe the pace picks up a little bit and Duke maybe scores a couple more points, but
Hmm.
maybe like a 62-54 type thing.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That was a very physical game. I mean, I credit Duke for winning. Like I said, I thought they were going to get blown out early. I thought that McCain and Proctor were fantastic. I mean, that was a good win for you guys, you know. And then obviously the game versus NC State was kind of a totally different story. Um,
they couldn't. So like with NC State,
they were up at halftime.
they were up,
Yes.
and but it was low scoring. They
Yep.
couldn't hit anything,
Yeah.
and they just kept like I don't think NC State beat Duke. Like I just think
DJ
like
Burns beat Duke.
but DJ Burns went off in the first game of the season where Duke beat like they just couldn't score for some reason.
Yeah,
Like I
Proctor
don't
was like what 0 for 9.
yeah. Like I don't think it was NC State that was causing that.
Hmm.
Um I mean and then you give a team confidence, in which NC State had a ton of.
Hmm.
And I think NC State. We talked before. I think the tournament probably highlight that they underperformed a little bit this year. I don't know if they should have been. Technically, if you get to the Final Four, I mean, you're a top four team.
Hmm.
Um, but I'd say NC State was probably, if they played this hard all year, they're probably a top 25 team.
Hmm.
Like, right in that. Like, they should have been NC State, if they played hard consistently, probably should have been, a top 7 seed or
Hmm.
something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but I, because I think when you're a high major
Hmm.
program, I don't think you can fake a run like this. I
Yeah.
think a mid major can kind of get hot. High major, I think you just kind of start playing to your potential.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it was an outstanding run. I mean, I like they wouldn't have been here if they hadn't won the conference tournament.
Yeah.
So it was extraordinary for them to be there. And then, obviously that was DJ Burns led the way for them, but it by no means was an easy tournament for them. And I showed their toughness.
I was just thinking, because I think what we should do at some point is we should go through. We should start doing. We'll do some transfer talk. We'll
Mm,
do some discussions on what rosters look like next year. Um, but in the UNC game,
mm-hmm.
um, where's it here? I think it's Jalen Withers. Pretty sure it's Jalen Withers. Um, yes. Who do UNC lose to get knocked out?
Alabama.
But yes. So the fantastic, probably, uh, definitely one of my favorite games of
Gee,
the
really?
tournament. No, but it was just so fast paced.
Oh yeah, sure. That's
Like,
why.
they were just like up and down, up and down. Really like good, like close game. And I watched a TikTok where these guys were like reenacting like moments from like sports and stuff.
Hmm.
And it was one guy was trying to beat Jalen Withers.
He
And
had a terrible
um,
game.
yeah, so he had that 3-pointer with like
Yes.
whatever, like 20 seconds left,
Yeah.
and it's Hubert Davis is on the line in the TikTok, like Jalen, pass it, like RJ's open, and the fake Jalen Withers looks at him, he's like, Coach, I'm him. He shoots it up and just airballs it because he shot that, and I was like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's what my brother has said because he had North Carolina winning it. And he goes, "Why would you shoot that?" And then, but yeah, I mean, my other two teams are Alabama, a fantastic run, and then
Yeah,
Tennessee too. I mean, they just ran to the wrong team, but Dalton Connect was fabulous. Grant Nelson, fabulous.
yeah. Does he have
Two,
a COVID year? Dalton Connect?
Nope, this was
Okay.
only a year in Knoxville. So yeah.
Um, yeah, um, yeah, team wise, I definitely I thought Alabama had a good run.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Clemson.
JMU kind of similar to, um, oh man, let me terrible memory. Who Duke beat last year? The that
Oral Roberts.
yeah, or Roberts. Um, I thought in both those games, Duke kind of like Duke heard all the rumblings, like, oh, like
Mhm.
this Duke's gonna get upset again.
Yeah.
And like they just came out and played so well in those
Hmm.
games. And
Yeah.
I think if it hadn't been Duke,
Hmm.
especially for like maybe like a JMU,
Yeah.
that maybe they're able to advance and we're able to kind of see what they really had.
Hmm.
But I think they just ran into like a great game plan by John Shire
Hmm.
and a team that was obviously more talented,
Yeah.
but was like, we're not going to get upset. We're not going to take this
Hmm.
team
Yeah.
lightly.
Hmm.
And I think if there's some other team, maybe another 4 seed, maybe a 5 seed that's not quite as good, they probably get through that. They get to the Sweet 16, and then
Hmm.
who knows at that point.
Yeah.
Um, Man, I was really. We talked about this before. If I'm just kind of going off of no notes and just first thing that pops in my mind, I was really disappointed with Michigan State in that UNC game where they got that lead and they just like they didn't
Yeah.
even just blow the lead. Then they
Yeah.
got blown out afterwards.
Yeah.
Like they just
Yeah.
no fight.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure we're gonna touch on this, but Kentucky too. I mean, that disappointment for a lot of people, and obviously the aftermath of that is John Calipari's no longer with them. He's moving to Arkansas, which I think is interesting.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of other disappointments, really.
yeah. I'm skimming. I just opened it up to kind of skim through it here.
Yeah.
I thought this was
Auburn.
definitely a good bounce back for Gonzaga. I think all year
Yep.
people were kind of a little bit down on them. So for them to get to, I
Hmm.
believe, their ninth straight Sweet 16,
Yep.
um,
Auburn was
that was,
disappointing.
yep. Um, I would say, a real good run by Clemson.
Yep. Absolutely.
Um, yeah, that Michigan State one. Iowa State, okay. Good run by Illinois. Illinois had a better run than I thought they would.
Hmm.
Uh,
Until they ran into that.
BYU. I mean, I didn't think BYU was gonna lose to Duquesne. I had
Me
them.
neither.
I thought BYU was gonna be a pretty strong team.
I had them in the Elite Eight. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it's a great tournament again, and it is now.
Yes. I mean,
Unless you, go ahead. Go ahead.
well, you mentioned Calipari. Um,
Yep. Is, are we gonna? Is that towards the end of the? Because I have something for you. It is time for your punishment.
is Jim
Because
McCain
for
in it?
those,
Did he make it in?
yes, he did. For those of you who it is your first time joining us, or you have forgotten, we made a bet that if I finished better than my co-anchor here, that he would have to watch One Shining Moment, and if I finished worse, then he would come up with a punishment for me, something Duke. May I just say, 2 weeks ago, he was making fun of me that I was last, and you know the saying, karma's a beep.
I haven't watched One Shy Moment in 9 years.
I remember when I tried to show you it my senior year, and you just refused to watch it. So, for your enjoyment, I will start to play One Shining Moment because
I hate
you,
Danny Hurley.
yeah, I know you do, but I know you hate him. Can you see it now?
I can see it. Are you too young to remember the 1 year where they tried to do Jennifer Hudson?
What year was that?
Like maybe. Oh, actually, it was 2015, I think.
Maybe. Maybe I.
And then like you now online like you can see like the Luther Vandross version, but
Really?
in the arena they did the Jennifer Hudson version. It was the one year they did it. It was terrible.
Of course. Are you ready? Are you so excited?
Nope.
Jared McCain's in it. Just don't lose to me. Don't pick Duke to win. There's the moral of the lesson here. Wait, it's muted. Hang on. We're gonna have to start all over again. Can you hear it now? Yep.
It is time to make dreams a reality. Don't you just love this time of year?
This is why we love March.
Mark Mitchell, your guy.
March Madness Magic. What an atmosphere we have here. It's such a
Fantastic time of year. You guys ready to dance?
There he is. Told you.
There you are. You're running for your life. You're a shooting star in all the years. No one knows just how hard you worked. But now it shows in one shining moment. It's all on the line. In one shining moment, they're frozen.
Oh, that dunk was sick. I remember that dunk.
It was. It was very nice. Rapping.
In the blinking of an eye, that moment's gone, and when it's done, win or lose, you always reach your best, 'cause inside you knew that in one shining moment you reached deep inside. One shining moment you knew you were.
I hate him.
Who? Coleman Hawkins?
No. The other DJ from NC State.
Feel the wind in your face. It's more than a
Him?
just, it's more
Yeah.
than
I don't like guys that aren't good role models for my children.
To the Final Four. The dream remains alive for NC State. The Alabama Crimson Tide will roll into the Final Four.
And the defense of the national championship is alive and well. And when it's done, win or lose, you always hit your best. 'Cause inside you knew, in one shining moment, you reached for the sky. In one shining moment, you knew. In one shining moment, you're willing to try. In one shining moment, you knew.
The magic of March has led us to this stage. Upstairs, Newton, bullseye.
One shining moment.
It is a Yukon coronation. The Huskies make history. Back-to-back national champions.
Now, wasn't that nice? What's that I heard? You're going to have to watch more? I know, it's spectacular. Thanks for being a good sport.
I'm gonna have to go watch Jared McCain TikToks now.
To purge yourself of the...
Danny Hurley is the kind of guy that wouldn't let Jared McCain paint his nails.
Why is that? You're going to be thinking about Danny Hurley. Danny Hurley's in your head. He lives rent-free in there.
So, Coach Cal, UMass could have made a play.
And fired Frank Martin.
Could have made a play. So,
Surprise, not surprise.
this all happened very quickly.
Yes.
You know, it was like the rumor was that Arkansas was maybe looking for Jerome Tang, and then they were looking at, I think Jay Rice had been tossed out there, but they're looking at another, Nate Oates' name was out there.
Mm-hmm.
But Jerome Tang, I think, was one of the more kind of like serious names that was out there.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of heard that. Well, I mean, the AD of Kentucky said Cal's coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And then boom, and the rumor is that the Tyson family, which the indoor track complex is named after at Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
I assume the Tyson family is the people that make like Purdue chicken, like Tyson chicken.
Okay.
So I guess they're the big like donors at
Mm-hmm.
Arkansas,
Okay.
and they're good friends with Coach Cal.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they were like, "That's the guy we want. We'll give you millions of dollars if you'll just
Mm-hmm.
pay him money, and
Yeah.
then we'll give you millions of more dollars if you for your NIL."
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the problem is, I mean, no matter where he goes, it doesn't mean the results are going to change.
True. Okay. So
It was good. It was definitely good for both parties. You had to go.
yeah. Yes. It's like he said in his message. It's time for a new voice, and I think he's right. It's one of those situations that is surprising but not surprising. You're surprised
Mhm.
at the timing of it, and you're surprised that it happened so quickly, but you're not surprised it happened because you had a feeling that this was going to happen based off the past couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it'll be interesting who follows him in Arkansas. He had a couple guys enter the transfer portal anyway
Yep.
before that move was announced. I find it interesting that he left Kentucky but stayed in the SEC.
Yes.
I thought that was interesting. But yeah, you're right. There's no guarantee the results are going to change just because he moved, a couple states over. So yeah, but it will be weird seeing Coach Cal in that Hogs red next year.
Yep.
A little bit.
It's probably a good move. In like we said, it was needed, but
Mhm.
also Cal's going to be able to get good players at Arkansas.
Exactly. Yep.
And Kentucky's going to be able to recruit because it's Kentucky.
Absolutely.
So it's Kentucky's not really going to be hurt by it, and Arkansas is going to be helped by it.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad move for either group. Kentucky doesn't have to pay the $30 million whatever buyout that they're going to have to give him to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So it's it'll be Billy Donovan's name has been kind of out there a little bit. Rick Pitino's name was out there.
Yeah. Imagine he moves to his third stop in 3 years.
It's definitely. I mean, it's just gonna make that SEC stronger, because I assume, although Kentucky could be down a little bit next year, right? Because if
depending on who they hire, absolutely.
But if those guys go to Arkansas, or even if two guys from the current team go to Arkansas and two recruits, and then a couple of guys just transfer out, Kentucky's kind of left with sort of the bare bones, and they're not going to have time for the new coach to actually recruit unless he picks up, unless it's a successful coach. I mean, not like Rick Pitino, because Rick Pitino thinks that his guys are bums. But like I don't know, we'll just say John Shire, right? Like, if a guy like that goes, he'll bring some of his guys. But Kentucky could struggle a little bit next year.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Then after that, it should be fine.
Yeah. What is it? Yeah, Oates said no, Hurley said no, and Jay Wright said no. So
but Jay Wright, like, he said no, but I mean, how much money it turns that into a yes? It's a little bit different for like a Danny Hurley because he has to leave a job. Jay Wright's not leaving anything.
Let's see. Some of the options are Kelvin Sampson, Bruce Pearl, like you said, Billy Donovan.
Bruce Pearl's he's gotten in trouble a couple times.
Yeah.
I'd stay away from him.
Brad Underwood and Rick Pitino.
What if he wouldn't do it anymore, but it's actually funny how what job does Brad Stevens have with the Celtics?
Oh, he's like the GM, the general manager. Yeah.
Because I assume he must make, I don't know, maybe not actually, but I assume he
It's a
must
good
make
amount.
a decent amount more than he makes as a college coach.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, he'd be a good hire.
He would. We can clown around about Rick Pitino and St. John's all we want, but he's a heck of a coach.
Yeah.
And I mean, at Kentucky, he probably wouldn't hate his team because he'd have a ton of resources and a ton of guys that want to go there, and he's a fantastic coach. So
I was at a I won't say where I was or what I was doing, but I was viewing a lacrosse game yesterday. I won't say what gender. And the coach said of the team that she's coaching, who wasn't they weren't winning the game at that point in time, and the coach goes, someone on the team asked, must have been something like, how come this person's playing, or how come like I came out, and the coach goes, I'm trying to get everyone in, because at this point in time they were down like 11-1. So the coach goes, I'm trying to get everyone in to get everyone experience because we're young, and the coach goes, look at the score, we're not going to win the game anyways, out loud for like everyone to hear.
that was Rick Pitino this year. This is the most unenjoyable experience of my life.
I mean, they got hot a little bit then, right?
Right.
People
That's
thought they
what I
should've got
found
in.
funny, is he says all that stuff, and then they get hot and almost make the tournament.
Yep.
Like, how do you come back from that?
How about, did you watch? I didn't. I almost turned it on. But they say the NIT was a pretty good tournament this year, and the final game was India State
Yep.
versus
Seton Hall. Yeah, that was a good
Seton Hall,
game.
and
That was a good game.
Seton Hall went on a 9-0 run
Mhm.
at the end to win it.
That was a great game. Fantastic.
Those are two teams that probably should have been in the
Should have been
tournament.
in, sure. Robbie Avila entered the transfer portal, but I liked after the game that Avila's head was down, and Shaheen Holloway walked right up to him and put his head up and told him there's no reason to keep your head down. And that's why I love Shaheen Holloway. But this
You know
Seton Hall
what's
team, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say. Normally, I'm always like, "Oh, what if you have the NIT champion play the NCAA champion, right?" And this year, you're like, like UConn would smoke them, right? Like
Right.
UConn.
But didn't Seton Hall beat UConn?
Yes. Like in this case, maybe not.
A good old Big East rivalry.
Yeah. So that's it was a good season. It was a less chaotic tournament than I thought it was going to be based off of what the season was like.
But still a great one, as always.
And I guess at the end of the day, right, you finished with Purdue and UConn.
Yep.
And let's say Houston was able to get by Duke without the injury. I mean, at the very least, 2, if not 3, of your clearly best teams all year were your best teams at the end of it.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Absolutely.
And that doesn't always happen with the tournament.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, I feel like next year it's going to be crazy again. It was still crazy this year. So the problem for us is now we're kind of boring. So we got to find
Yeah, I think we can start talking about some big name transfer stuff.
Yeah.
What Duke did last year is, I don't know if they coordinated with the social media team or they all talk to each other. Basically, every week someone released what they were doing to kind of give the other people their time to shine and grieve and stuff like that. So Mark Mitchell came out, I assume, on the weekend or next Tuesday. I want to say last year it was pretty much like every Tuesday a new thing came out. I would assume you get that may just be transfer non-controversial stuff. Like Flip is probably going to go to the league, and that could probably come out at any point. I mean, the interesting conversation, and I don't want to make it super Duke heavy, but the interesting conversation, is probably what happens with Jared McCain.
Mm-hmm. No, he's going to the league. He's not staying. He's going to the league. You do know he's a top 10 pick right now in the mock draft, right? He's not going to the league.
You see his post-game interview?
They all say that. He's going to the league.
He didn't say anything. That's what I saw.
Okay. That's a conversation for another podcast.
And he's got to go back to Duke to take his TikTok class that he's in.
Yeah. I'm sure he can do that in his free time in the NBA.
Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, I think, yeah, I don't know if to say that, but like, I think the more interesting question a lot of people have is the Tyrese Proctor one, where
he's a lottery pick too.
Yeah, like, but there's people that think he'll come back. I think Tyrese Proctor should go to the league, even if he spends some time in the G League.
I think Proctor, McCain, and Flip will all be gone.
Yeah, and I wonder how much these guys, I would assume a little bit, like not just Duke guys in general, communicate this stuff with each other. Because I think it's important, right? Like if you're the odd man out in that group, is not in that group, but in that type of group is Jeremy Roach.
Sure.
And if Jeremy Roach, he has a 5th year COVID, he could easily go and he could play overseas. Maybe he can go to the G League and do some stuff. But if Jeremy Roach knows for sure that Jared McCain and Tyrese Proctor aren't coming back, you might as well stay at Duke and just make some money through NIL.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'll definitely be interesting, as like you said, to what a lot of your guys decide to do. So yeah,
it'll be interesting. Be interesting off season. Interesting. I mean, we don't have as much to talk about, but I mean, the off season is a lot more interesting now because of the transfer portal than it was, 10 years ago, where you kind of were just waiting for the next season to start.
Yeah, absolutely.
So interesting to kind of look at. We can preview a couple of teams, preview some of the, the top 10 players in the class, and look at what these sort of teams look like going into next year. Some of these. I've got to imagine. I have no idea who they're bringing in recruit wise, but you got to imagine Purdue's going to take a hit. I mean,
without Edey, absolutely,
yeah,
sure.
They've got to. I think Purdue, without knowing anything about what they're bringing in, Purdue's got to be hoping or counting if they can make the Sweet 16 next year. I think that's got to be like a check winning their book.
Yeah.
And then you start kind of rebuilding, because I don't know, like it's hard for the big man nowadays. Whether it's Edey or Klingon or any of those guys, like recruiting them and convincing them to stay and
is hard.
Because it's just. But then at the end of the day, like they say that it's NBA is not a big man's league anymore. I remember back, Taco Fall played a couple seasons for the Celtics. He made millions of dollars. Zach Edey's way better than Taco Fall is. And
Zach Edey will. I don't know. That's another thing we could do too is draft combine and how all those guys looked. So
it'll be interesting to see kind of what the future of the big man is, because the big man wins you college basketball championships, not just the big man, but helps you for sure win college basketball championships. But it just doesn't transfer as much. You got to be fast and so all right. Anything else to add on to the tournament, onto the season?
I don't think so, besides the fact that it was great as always.
Yeah, and congratulations to the UConn Huskies. And let's just a quick look here. Texas A&M is not an ESPN's way too early top 25 rating, just so you know.
It's all right. We don't have to be. It's all right.
Duke is the the number one team in the way too early top 25.
They are.
What I one last thing, random thing, because it kind of popped in my head when I was looking at this earlier. See, he's not. I guess they didn't put him in here because they weren't sure. RJ Davis has the coach. I guess finish off at this point. You think RJ Davis can play in the
NBA? I think so.
I mean,
I think he can.
Who's the guy?
It may take some time at first, but
what team does this guy play for? I don't know if he still plays for the Magic. Who's the other UNC guard from a couple of years ago? It's in the NBA. Let me see. He used to play for the Magic. I can't remember if he still does or not. No, he played for the Bulls.
Oh, Kobe White.
RJ Davis
he still plays for them.
All that different for
he
him,
still plays.
Right?
He's doing pretty good. Yeah, he'll have a spot. Yeah, definitely for sure.
All right. So, off-season goal, more stats, more Duke, and I'm gonna learn how to make YouTube shorts, so I can start clipping pieces together and starting the advertising going out. I'm gonna make a TikTok. Once I figure out the YouTube shorts, I'm gonna make a TikTok for the channel, and then I'm gonna get us on YouTube, regular YouTube shorts, and on TikTok.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yep.
Expanding our brand. That's what we do on the podcast.
We want to become the number one college basketball brand in the world, just like Duke is.
Just like UConn.
All right. Well, to our Dorian fans, don't worry, we'll be back pretty soon, and we'll start the preparation for next year. All right.
Absolutely.